$55 for an RGB mechanical keyboard. Not bad at all. I'm Redragon and welcome to the channel. If you're familiar with a pluggable keyboard or pretty much any clone keyboard that shares the same chassis, this is going to look very similar to you. The layout is standard, which is awesome if you plan on replacing the keycaps with alternative ones. If you take out the Redragon logo on the top of the arrow key, this keyboard actually looks pretty stealth, like it kind of flies under the radar. The font is the typical bold font that you would normally get with double shot ABS caps. Personally, I don't mind these keycaps, but I'm sure there's a number of you guys that really hate the font. There's this chrome ring around the keyboard, and initially, I didn't really notice or care, but when I place it on my desk, there's a light that's behind me, and literally at some spots, if I don't place them correctly, it's freaking blinding. The keycaps have a floating key design, which is nice when it comes to cleaning the keyboard. I also like how compact the keyboard is despite it being a full-size keyboard. People with limited desk space will appreciate this feature. There are media controls bound to the F keys, which could be a deal breaker for some. Then again, it's a compact keyboard, so you take some and you lose some. This keyboard rocks the Redragon in-house switch, which at least from the switch name, at least that's what I see printed on it. I don't think they're KL switches because the switch housing doesn't look like it. In terms of how they feel, I like the brown switches. These feel similar to that of the Ultemu browns in terms of weight and how the bounce back is. The switches do feel more tactile than something like the MX brown, and they ever so slightly feels heavier. But overall, it's very smooth, not that scratchy. I would place it above MX brown, but below Gateron. In terms of overall tactility and smoothness, the light is in the PCB, which is nice because it makes the keyboard easy to swap out switches. I think this is more or less like the Phantom keyboard that I reviewed. I'll link it below. Anyways, feels good, and here's what it sounds like. This keyboard uses Cherry MX stabilizers, which is nice when you have to clean the longer keycaps. Also nice when you have to replace the keycaps with aftermarket ones. Generally, I prefer Cherry stabilizers because I have a bad experience with the Co-Star stabilizer from my time with the Razer keyboards. If you don't ever plan on taking out the longer keycaps for anything, I would say look at the Corsair stabilizer because the longer keycaps do feel better, at least from the time I remembered it. Honestly, I think they ripped this straight out of the pluggable keyboard because from my experience, I only knew the pluggable keyboard have this shiny black plastic on the side of the keycaps. The top where you're pressing them feels smooth. It's a texture similar to pretty much any other double shot caps. I do like these keycaps, but that shiny black plastic can easily collect dust, so keep this keyboard clean can be a challenge. The corners are sharp as hell. Be very careful when moving this keyboard around. I almost cut myself a few times. The flip up feet does have rubber on them, so the keyboard will feel planted during longer typing and gaming sessions. The cable is rubber and you do get cable management velcro, which is a nice touch. You also get gold plated USB tips, so it's either you like it or you hate it. An interesting thing to note is that when I first used the software, for some reason it thinks the inland keyboard is the one that's associated with the software, and I would have to unplug the inland keyboard in order for the software to register this keyboard. The software is pretty much the same format as the Inland, so I'm guessing all of these clone keyboards share the same software, just different coats of paint. This is something that I did not know, and this is interesting. So I'm guessing for those that cannot find the software to the Inland keyboards can literally download this software and it's just going to transfer it over. Let me know in the comments down below, see if I'm right, because if I am, then your answer of having to find the software has been solved. Bottom line, for the price of a K55, this keyboard is worth it. I would pick up this keyboard over the K55 any day of the week. In fact, I would pick these clone RGB mechanical keyboards over the brand name membrane ones any day of the week. These clone keyboards definitely have come a long way from being just a cheap mechanical alternative. They're slowly taking over the market because of just their price to performance ratio. I mean, think about it. For a price of a membrane keyboard, you get a mechanical keyboard with swappable switch, which means if the switch is broken, you swap one out for a different one. You don't have to replace the entire keyboard. You also get RGB lighting. Now, this isn't as good. There's just not that many effects and not that many layers, so keep that in mind. But besides that, you're getting a really solid keyboard for a fraction of the bigger players in the market. I would really consider one of these things before shelling out hundreds of dollars on the brand name ones. If interested, I'll link it down below. Anyway, subscribe, bell, more content. You guys stay awesome now.